So for those of you that don't know, Farias is a professor, a language professor, a linguist, polyglot, meaning he's proficient in many different languages, and also a poet, artist, painter.
Yeah.
And I invited him so that we could talk about specifically indigenous language that he's fluent in, which is called Tupi. So if you want to tell us a little bit about how you came about learning Tupi. What was it about it that you started learning? Do you have indigenous heritage? Is that why you got into it?
That's such a very good question. Well, I think that I have indigenous heritage because when I was very young, my mother used to tell me that her great grandmother was an indigenous person. So since then, I wanted to become an indigenous person, but because I was so young and I did not have I couldn't have the opportunity to find the books and things like that about learning, more about indigenous culture, indigenous language. So it's been, I think, something like 14 years that I have been entering into this journey of discovering about my roots, about indigenous language.
Wow. And when did you how did you learn it? Because you're fluent in it. Did you spend time with indigenous people, or did you how did you become fluent?
Well, we have this book. It's a classical book about learning Tupi. It's called Curso de Tupi Antigo by Lemos Barbosa. This book was published in 1956. So at first I was browsing on the internet looking for some materials about this language, and then out of the blue I was on the train in Sao Paulo, and then one guy saw me reading something about Tupi, and then he talked about Dr. Navarro from USP, and then I went to USP and bought his books. I have some here, Curso de Tupi Antigo and Dicionário de Tupi Antigo, and in 2015 I spent 1 year studying with him. I also studied that language called Nhengatu, which is a new version of Tupi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like a modern, what they speak now?
Modern. Yeah. No, it's not the old one. What I have studied is the old Tupi. We can find the materials about learning this language on books, on classical books like these ones here. We have a Catecismo back from the 1621, and then we have the poetries by José de Anchieta from the 16th century. So we have these materials, and then we, based on the materials that they left for us back from the 16th century, we have access to learning this language, But a modern material for learning, the very first one was this one, published in 1956. And nowadays we have this Curso Moderno, Método Moderno de Tupi Antigo by Dr. Navarro from USP. I also have a channel.
Modern in the sense.
Yeah, the Nhengatu is spoken in São Gabriel da Cachoeira in Amazonas. But the old Tupi, it's not spoken by majority of people, Only the enthusiasts love to learn this language.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, do indigenous people still speak Tupi in their tribes, or no?
No, they don't. They have a plan. This Tupi language was spoken on the coast of Brazil, from São Vicente up to northeast, all of the area. That's why the priest José de Anchieta, he wrote a grammar called Gramática da Língua Mais Usada na Costa do Brasil. So this language, we only have the materials back from the 16th and 17th century. But nowadays, there is a project from the indigenous people of Paraíba, and they are learning Tupi, the old Tupi. Yeah.
Wow.
And I also had the opportunity to teach Tupi for a couple of indigenous people from Alagoas, from the Huaçu Cocal tribe. They don't speak Tupi, of course. They speak Portuguese, but they talk to me in order to teach them the language, you know.
Wow. So there's indigenous people asking you to teach them
Yeah.
this ancient language.
Yes, that's
I
it.
had no idea that that's how. But how did this happen? How did the language just like disappear?
Well, that's a sad question for me to answer, because in the 1757, the governor called Marquês de Pombal, he prohibited the language to be spoken because due to the domination of linguistic domination, you know, when they want to dominate a place or a region, they try to impose their language. That's why it was forbidden to speak the Tupi language, and then the language started to disappear. But nowadays we have like an evolved, very poor but evolved language called Nhangatu, which is a língua geral, a língua franca, spoken in the Amazonas, but it's totally different from the old Tupi. We can understand the words. There are some differences about pronunciation, but the grammar is very poor.
Okay. It's not a language that's rich in like vocabulary and grammar.
Yeah, it's a language, but it's not. Yeah, it's a language, but when I say it's poor, I'm comparing the grammar, the old Tupi. If I compare it with this Nhangatu, it's totally different. Only the vocabulary, but the syntax is something like the Portuguese language.
But with Nhangatu, a person would be able to communicate with various different tribes in the Amazon.
We have many indigenous languages back in. Nowadays, we have more than 200 languages. It's spoken from different branches, linguistic branches. The most important is the Tupi. This language Tupi, people mistakenly say Tupi Guarani. There's not such a thing. Tupi Guarani is a name of a branch, linguistic branch, which is separated by Tupi and then Guarani. Guarani, we have the Paraguayan Guarani, Mbla Guarani. I have some materials here from more language, indigenous language. But the most important linguistic branch is the Tupi. There is also in Maranhão another language which came from Tupi, old Tupi, which is called Tenetehara. It's a language that is spoken there, indigenous language.
Could you say, because like for me to try to understand, so Portuguese is derived from Latin, the Latin root.
Yeah.
And then from the Latin
Correct.
root, you have many different Romantic languages, like
Yes.
Portuguese, French, Italian. Could you say that Tupi is also what other indigenous languages are derived from, or no?
Yes, you're right. You're right. But not only Tupi, we also have Macro-G. Macro-G is also a linguistic branch which created many languages. Like here in Northeast, we have one language called Iate Fonio. As a matter of fact, this language is a tonal language, like Mandarin. Very interesting. So this book here is, let me see. This book is from Iate language. It's not derived from Tupi, you know. And here I have Kaxinawa, which is another branch, linguistic branch. So nowadays, we have, this book is very interesting, short one, but it says here, it gives you examples of more than 30 languages. Some of them derived from Tupi, some other derived from Macro-G or another linguistic branch.
Okay, it's not only Tupi, but the majority comes
Not
from
only Tupi. Yeah. That's it. That's correct.
Another thing that I was when I was researching and I found your audio that you were speaking in Tupi.
Yeah.
And then it had the sounds of nature and everything. And I was like, wow, it's like you sound like a shaman in the middle of the jungle. Very beautiful.
That's my dream.
And
that's my dream to become.
Well, you have everything to do it. When I was listening to it, I was listening to the phonetics of the sound, right? Because to me, language is very similar to music, right? It has melody, it has rhythm.
You're right.
And I was under the impression that I was hearing, like you just said, there's like tones. Like I was like, oh my God, this sounds like a sound that I heard in Korean or Japanese, or am I on the right track? Because I could, like, there were certain sounds that sounded to me that were Asian. Is that right?
Well, it does not have anything to do with Asian languages, but by coincidence, they have some similarities, phonetic similarities. This happens in many languages. It is not a signal. It doesn't mean that the language is derived from Japanese or something like that. We have a study by Luis Caldas de Biriçá. He is comparing some languages, some indigenous languages from Brazil to Asiatic languages, but it does not match. You know, when you try to do this study, first you use vocabularies that has the same origin. I mean, for example, parts of the body. So do they have the same similarities? And but it does not prove whether the language is derived from another one or not. What proves is you have to look for the phonetic system. You also have to see the similarities about a whole bunch of words, vocabularies, and also most important is the morphology of the language, you know, so the grammatical structure of the language.
So what you're saying is that there are phonetics, or there are certain sounds in Tupi that are similar to Asian languages, Asian languages, but they're not derived or associated, but they're similar.
They're not.
Right?
Yes, only similarities. But these similarities, okay. Yeah, please.
No, go ahead. No, it's because João Marcos, hello João, he was asking if you could say something in Tupi. Could you recite some of that? Was it poetry in that video? Is it like
poetry? Yeah, that's it. I can see.
Could you recite something so we could listen?
For example, the Lord's Prayer is like this. Oreirub uvakupatekwar imataparamandera toiko to urnareino. Nyamoyang nene motara uvakapaini moyanga yabe. Oreiremi ara iabi onwara ime korioreva nanyiron oreanga ipavare se oreve. Orere come moassara super orenyiron yabe. Oremo arukaro menge tentação peore pusiron peshepe imba aiba sui amen. We have like this glottal sounds like imba me. This is that's very interesting from the Tupi language.
This is interesting that you're saying that it's glottal sounds. I don't know if you've heard of Trevor Noah. Have you heard of him? He's a South African comedian, and he works in the United States. and sometimes he makes like he does a lot of accents, and in South
as you do,
Africa,
as you
I
do.
think his grandmother.
You
Yeah,
also do, Hannah. I saw some of your videos.
yeah, I love accents. And he speaks I don't know, he speaks a language in Africa that has a bunch of these
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of
Xhosa.
glottal sounds.
Yeah,
Like
that's
the whole
called
language.
Xhosa. Xhosa. It's a click language.
Xhosa.
Click language. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's a
Click
click
language.
language. Is it kind of like the
No, it's
kind
not.
of,
It's not. It's a different feature. The glottal is like a glottal stop,
Okay.
as we have in Japanese. Like we have tori, ori, kako, kako. We have this glottal stop. Yeah.
In England, they have certain accents in England that have a glottal stop, like like they say water instead of water. It has that little glottal water instead of water.
Yeah. So like American English, when you say it's important, or instead of saying it's important, it's important to talk about linguistic features, right?
So this is a feature that's like in the language a lot. This glottal.
Yeah, of course, sure, yeah. We can see this feature in all the Tupi Guarani linguistic branch, like Guarani as well. They have this glottal stop. In all the words, for example, when you a very interesting feature from the Tupi Guarani languages is that it's like we have perfect descriptions about things. For example, when I say knowledge, I have to say like this. I have to describe whether knowledge is about things or knowledge about someone. So if I say mbae kwapaba is the knowledge about things. Moro kwapaba is the knowledge about someone. It's very interesting also the characteristic like agglutinative language. It's like the German language. We have a lot of agglutination. So many parts are put together in order to create a new concept.
You mean like compound words?
Yes, compound words.
Is that what you mean?
But
like
but all the parts.
Germans, they put like ice. Guys.
Okay, please.
It's because in German, they I think this is what, I don't know if this is what you mean, but like in German they put like ice shrunk. So like ice is ice and shrunk is like a closet, and then you put these two words together and it means refrigerator. Yeah, and then you come up with a new idea. That's just like I can see a lot of a new word. I can see many similarities, not linguistic. I'm not talking about the grammar. I'm not talking about the vocabulary. I'm not talking about phonetic, but I can see a lot of characteristics and similarities between Chinese and Mandarin, Chinese and Tupi, when it comes to the way the words are created. For example, in Chinese we say 火车 for train. We say the vehicle, the fire vehicle. So 火车, something like this happens in the Tupi language. And so it's created with a lot of words, and they put together the meanings, and then they come up with something new. You know what? I think I know what you're talking about. Like here in Brazil, the names of, for example, Itaipu. Right? Itaipu, that's correct. Ita is rock. Stone. Yeah, that's rock. Pu is sound. Okay. Is a sound. Yeah, Itaipu. If you say, for example, Itu is like a waterfall, because
U means water or river. Tu means explosion or the sound. Or pu, you can say tu or pu. So tu is a waterfall. Ita, whenever you find this part ita, it means metal, or you can also say mineral or rock, something like that. So it's very important for us to study Tupi, because when you do that, you can understand a lot of words that we use without knowing the meaning, you know. For example, when you are in Sao Paulo, you enter the subway and then you go to the Tucuruvi train station. Tucuruvi. What is Tucuruvi? When you know that Tucuruvi comes from
what is
Tucura, Tucura means grasshopper. Vu means green or blue. So Tucuruvi means a green grasshopper. When you say Tietê, Tietê comes from Tu-ete. Tu, this Tu is a water. Ete means genuine. So Tu-ete means that the river was an edible, we had edible water there. So we could drink water from the Tietê back then, but not now, you know? So like that, not now, unfortunately, not now. But we have many, like Paquetá. Paquetá is a place for many pacas. This etá comes from with the idea of many. So Paquetá, many pacas. Paca is an animal, you know that, right? Paca comes from the verb pac. Pac means to be awake, because as I told before, the Tupi language is a descriptive characteristic, psychological characteristics, physical characteristics of the animals and objects and all of those things. So when you say paca, I am saying that that animal is like awakened, you know? It's like this.
Wow. So everything is very like descriptive. And we have so many words that come from Tupi and Portuguese.
Sure.
Could you give like a percentage? Do you know like a percentage? Like, is it 10, 20% of our language comes from Tupi or more?
Some specialists say that they have something like 10,000, but it's spread like toponymy, you know, names of characteristics, geographical characteristics, name of fish, name of animals, and also Tupi is used like a scientific way for describing new animals, new characteristics like plants and you know, fruits. Everything that is from Brazil, they use the Tupi language. For example, jaguar. We have the jaguar, which means jaguara. Jaguara is the onça in Portuguese. So this jaguar, the meaning of it is like an animal which eats too much. So jaguar, it eats, you know, the animal eats too much.
Wow. That's why I wanted to have you on, because for me, and we think very similarly, that the preservation of indigenous language is really the preservation of of knowledge, of wisdom, that we've been disconnected from, and that we are so deprived to have, especially now when we have all this sickness, you know, mental and physical sicknesses because of our disconnection with nature. And the lack of respect with ourselves, right? It's a reflection of self-destruction, right? So you have so many diseases like mental diseases, depression, and then the destruction of nature. So I feel like there's a connection between all this and the preservation of nature. I mean, the preservation of the indigenous language, because it's all linked. It seems like it isn't, but it is, because we're talking about our nature reflected in Mother Nature. And from what I can perceive, the language, I don't know, this is like an idea that came to me. The language and the sound of the language, I don't know if this is something that's true, but to me, I feel like I wonder if the certain sounds or the glottal stop and all these things have to do with sounds that the indigenous people were hearing, because I can imagine like living in nature. We didn't have phones, we didn't have anything, and then you have the emergence of language, which is sound, and then you have all these sounds around you, like the birds and the waterfall and the ocean, and that you start describing things through different sounds that you listen to as well in nature. I'm just, thinking of that right now.
Yes.
But I don't know if you can elaborate on that.
Some people who study Tupi have discovered that some words, they describe the sound. There is a term for it, but I can't not remember right now the term for it. But it really describes the feelings, the sensation you have when you are in nature. Like kiririm. Kiririm means to be silent. So kiririm means silent. When you hear a cricket at night, so it starts to, so it's like a kiririm. And there are some words, for example, the verb to pop, to explode. They say poc. That's where we have the word pipoca from Portuguese. Portuguese people speak this word pipoca, but they think it's from Portuguese. It's not. That's Tupi. Pipoca is derived from pirapoca. Pira is so pira means skin. Pira means fish. Pira means skin. Okay. So pipoca, the meaning is the kernel explode its skin and then it's transformed into a pipoca. Pirapoca. It's the skin of the kernel which explodes and becomes the pipoca. And also we have a phonetic structure here in this word, because we say pirapoca. So this ra, the last syllable is dropped. Then they say pipoca. Poca is a verb. Actually, here in Northeast, I'm living in Northeast right now. It's been 3 months that I'm living here with my mom. So people here, they used to say, "Oh, o balão pocou" in Alagoas. O balão pocou, or o balão estourou. The balloon exploded. So the balloon popped. So they say, o balão pocou. Pocar is the verb poc. Is the verb poc from Tupi. So pipoca is something which explodes and changes into that kind of food. And if you go to Chinese, you have the same descriptive structure for the word pipoca. They say pao mi hua. Pao means to explode. Mi means grain. Hua means the flower. So it's a flower which explodes from the grain. From the grain, In English, it's the same for the word popcorn. Pop means explode. Corn means the milho. Right. So popcorn is a corn which explodes. So these words are related from Tupi language. Also, we have the word piranha in English, which comes directly from the Tupi, like tapioca and many words from Brazil, from nature in Brazil. They have in English the same thing. Bahia, João says in Bahia we say o balão pipocou. Yeah, o balão pipocou. That's it. That's correct.
What does that mean? Balão pipocou.
The balloon exploded. Yeah, exploded.
Oh.
It popped.
Oh, it's literal. It's a literal.
Yeah, literal. Yeah, that's correct.
I thought it was like an expression. Wow, but that's so interesting, and I can understand what you're saying about the Mandarin and the Tupi in that sense of kind of being so descriptive in the language in that sense, right? And
yeah.
I think it comes from. I feel like ancient languages kind of have that characteristic because of the because
you're right.
they're so immersed in.
You're right.
So it has to make sense. Things have to make sense. Like, it's very easy to. Would you say that it's what would you say the level of difficulty is to learning Tupi?
Well, before answering this question, yes, it's difficult. But before answering this question, I'd like to share some light. I'd like to share some light about this that you said. Ancient languages has some kind of descriptive characteristics and things like that.
Okay.
For example, the Hebrew language. I'm not an expert in Hebrew, but I have studied some in 2005. So I forgot a lot of Japanese and Hebrew, but I can remember some. When you go to the first chapter of the Bible, which we used to say Genesis or Genesis in English, which comes from the word comes from the Greek language. But if you say in the real language, in Hebrew language, you say Bereshit. I have a polyglot Bible somewhere here. I don't remember where it is. But the name of the Genesis, name of the book is Bereshit. Bereshit means right in the beginning. That's the name of the book in Hebrew. So Bereshit means on the head of the time, so in the beginning. And then we have, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But if you say this in Hebrew, you say, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz, ve'haaretz hayeta tohu vavohu. Meaning is, in the beginning, in the head of time, God's, it's not a God in singular or plural. We have a dual in Hebrew. So in the head of time, God's created the heaven and the earth. So it's interesting. And now answering the question about the level of difficulty. Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
So answering about the level of difficulty about learning Tupi, well, this language has a lot of characteristics which we cannot find in Latin languages, Romance languages. For example, we have an exclusive and inclusive way of addressing to people. For example, when I say we are having a chit chat, we are talking right now. You are included in this conversation, yeah? But if someone else is here, the person does not know whether he is included in the conversation or not. But when you use Tupi, you have the information, for example, whether you are included or not in the conversation. For example, when I say, Ore pindora manguara, or I say, Jandé pindora maguara, there is a difference. I'm saying we are Brazilian people. But if I say this to a Chinese person, I say, Ore pindora manguara. So meaning is, we are Brazilian, but you are not. And if I say, Jandé pindora manguara, I am Brazilian, you are Brazilian, and you are Brazilian too. So it's a very interesting characteristic that we can find in Tupi language. In addition to that, we also have something which I worked on when I wrote my my article about linguistics. And I have compared the way the linguistic time is working in many languages, like Portuguese. I compared Portuguese, English, Tupi, and Mandarin. So I discovered a very, very, very huge difference when it comes to, stating time. For example, in Portuguese, I have the time in verb. Eu cantava, eu cantarei, eu canto. So the verb shows that the action has something to do with time. But when it comes to Chinese, they don't have this. So they work with particles. Those particles indicate whether you are speaking in present or past or future or something like that. And also, when you speak Tupi, you don't have the time marked on a verb, but on a substantive, on a noun. For example, if I say tembiu, tembiu means meal, food. She tembiu. So it's the food that I have right now. But if I'm talking about something that I'm preparing for eating in the future, I can say she tembiurama. She tembiurama. But for example, you invited me to eat something, and then yesterday we ate. So we can say Yandé tembiu puera y catuete. So the food that's not anymore was very good to eat. We don't have a verb. We don't have a time, the time mark in a verb, but in a noun. So it's another very, very different characteristic from Tupi, you know. I like learning many languages, many different languages, unrelated languages, because I can have this view that if you are a monolingual person, you will never have the chance to discover, you know.
Yeah.
That's why it makes
sure,
studying Tupi. Yeah, when you study by yourself, as I always do, you know, I learn language by myself. You see that it's a very big block to break, you know. In Bahia, what languages do you study? Well, I have studied some languages. I can speak, actually I can speak Portuguese, of course, or Brazilian Portuguese, or I can speak Alagoanês. Alagoanês, which is my dialect. Yeah, my dialect. A mixture with some words from Tupi, like saburica. Saburica is the name of a shrimp, a small shrimp. Jereré, which is something that you use it to catch fish. So I can speak some Spanish, but not that good. Yeah, okay, you speak Bayanese. João, I can speak some Spanish, Mandarin, Tupi. I speak some Hebrew, but I'm not that good in this language. I studied some Latin, and yeah, that's it. And Japanese as well. But I'm very happy. Yeah, I'm very happy that we have this conversation with Juliana right now, and she really is an expert about speaking many languages, and she has the makings of, you know, acting like you know, even a Brazilian who can't speak good English with that. I love it to eat popcorn. That is very good. I saw this video. I laughed a lot, so it's good.
Thanks. It's because I love like listening to people and how they like express themselves, right? Because usually when we learn a language, our template, the template is the language we know. So we bring all the stuff that we know, the characteristics, onto the other language. So it's like fun.
Yeah, you're right.
Like a different character.
And yes.
So I love it.
Are those lines made by you? Like you said something like, I can speak English because I love it to eat hamburger, and then I go to McDonald's, it is good. So funny like that.
Yeah, I wrote the script.
Ah, you're like, okay, so
yeah,
that's great.
Because I was born in the United States, and my parents are Brazilian. So when I moved to Brazil, I started speaking Portuguese, learning Portuguese, and then the words that were in English, I would say with an American accent. So I would be like,
internet.
Go to McDonald's in Brazil, and I'd be like,
McDonald's.
Hamburger. Or
hamburger.
Eu quero Gatorade. So I had to learn how to say American words. I had to learn how to say American words with a Brazilian accent, so people would understand me.
Brazilian accent.
And go and
that's it. Yeah, that's funny because sometimes when I go to the groceries and then I want to buy like house, people here in Brazil, they say, eu quero house. But house is casa. So I say, I wanna buy a house. Oh, house? What is it? We don't have house here.
Yeah.
It's funny. This really funny.
But it's funny because even till today, I have to like American words that people use here. I have to like think about it before I say it, because I know if I say it as an American, nobody's gonna understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Also,
you're right.
Sounds
You're
like,
right.
you know, I sound like I'm trying to show off, but I don't even know how to say like everything, like trident, like the gum, dainty.
Yeah, trident. Yes.
Like you have to adapt it to the accent. So
what I noticed about these English words in Portuguese, we have the stressed syllable in a different position. For example, Brazilian people say internet.
Yeah.
The same way we say guarda-roupa, girassol. So these compound words, they have the stressed syllable on the second word. And then people say, "Oh, I need to buy a very good internet connection instead of internet connection." So you have to adapt this, the way you put the stressed syllable, like importante. And also, I think you had this problem when you came to Brazil, because we have like many ways of saying the letter R. Here in Alagoas, people say importante. In São Paulo, they say importante. So we say it's a cultural song. Importante, they say importante. And then in English, you say important. So it's very interesting to analyze this and to apply when you are acting.
Yeah,
so you really have the makings of a very good actress.
Ooh, thank you. I'll remember to thank you when I get my Oscar.
Okay. Good.
And I was gonna another thing that I was gonna say about the characteristic of Portuguese is that we end up always putting a vowel at the end of the words.
Yeah.
So I remember like when I have friends that come from the States, and then they say, "Oh, I don't know, your name is Brad." They're not gonna say, "Hey, Brad." They're gonna say Brad. Or
Brady, yeah.
Instead of like Mark.
That's correct.
And they're like, I'm saying it right. And this is something interesting that I found with you, which is many people that love languages also are really good at music and art. Like I feel like there's always a
connection.
Like an affinity between, like a connection between music and language, because language is very musical in that sense.
Yes, you're right.
Wouldn't you say so?
You're right. Yeah, especially Chinese, because since Chinese is a tonal language, when you change the tone, you change the meaning of what you mean, you know? For example, you say, 我的妈妈很好人，我的马不好。所以这个马 means horse, 妈 means mother, 马 means hemp. So you have to be very careful when you are speaking this Mandarin language. For example, 交黄交换. So 交黄交换. I think music has a lot to do with language when it comes to the way of you express your feelings. You know what I mean. Conversation has been amazing.
Yeah,
thanks, John.
I know it has. I think it's because language, it's a reflection of what we feel, right? It's an expression of how we feel, what we think about things, and it's a reflection of culture. So it ends up having this,
right?
I guess, effect, like music, similar to music. So, okay, Farias, this has been, is there anything else that you want to share?
I'm fine for now. I really I really like to thank you for this opportunity. I'm a little bit shy, you know. I'm not that good at you know,
Really?
using the internet. Yeah, so I'm a little bit shy. I'm sorry about that. But we really had very good, so much fun today. I really appreciate that conversation with you, and I thank João to participate with us. João, do you have any question? What is the most difficult language you ever learned?
Yeah.
Tupi was one of them. Well, in my opinion, the most difficult language is Portuguese, because I had an experience of teaching Portuguese for Chinese people for more than 5 years in São Paulo. So all of the Chinese people who came to São Paulo, for example, within 1 week, they did not speak a word in Portuguese. They were used to write only in Hanzi, the Chinese characters. So I had to teach them how to read Bababi Babu, Mamemi Mamu, the syllables, and then teach them the verbs and things like that. I discovered that Portuguese is very difficult. I think that Juliana can also agree with me when I say that Portuguese is difficult when it comes, for example, you have the preposition de, do, de, dos. So it changes when I say mesa de vidro, mesa de plástico, mesa de pedra, o carro da Maria, os brinquedos dos meninos. So it's very complicated. I think Portuguese is one of the most difficult languages. Yeah, I'm shy. Don't be shy. We're all artists. Yeah.
So you know what's funny?
That's right.
You can't tell. You can't tell you're shy.
Really, really. Maybe it's because it's the very first time we are talking.
You're doing
so. Thanks. Yeah.
I was gonna say that Portuguese is another thing that I found difficult with Portuguese was the feminine and masculine, because in English we don't have this, and also the verb conjugation. Like not even many Brazilians know the proper conjugation to verbs because it gets so complex that it's just But that's another thing. Language is a living, breathing thing that's always like in metamorphosis, because it's always changing according to culture and what people are thinking, and also people that are migrating or immigrating to cities, and as the country or as the world becomes more global, like many different languages start to influence the accent and the words that we speak. Like I can see the difference between the Portuguese I speak and the Portuguese my grandmother speaks. Like she says some words that I'm like, what are you saying? I have no idea what that means, you know? Because it's like, it's ancient. It already doesn't like resonate today. So language is always in this constant transformation, because I think it's like what we said, it's a reflection of us. And as like we change, the language change, the sounds. And in England, I mean in London specifically, I saw a study where from one generation to the next, you can find accents, like a whole different accent, because there's so many people from China, Africa, Jamaica, India, that they're like the sound completely changes. And then like the parents of children are like, I don't even understand what this person is. I can't understand my children. This accent that they're talking, I can't even understand where. And it's so fascinating because of the influence from different people from different countries. So I love that.
Yes.
Like talking about culture and accents. So
that's correct. For example,
so,
the pronoun você, the old one is vosso mercê, vosso mercê. So it comes from vós mercê, você. And now people say você vai lá. So it has this tendency to shorten the words.
Yeah. and like combined it. And this I found in many like spoken languages, like in French too. French, like they call it the liaison. Like they start putting everything, all the words together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you study, like, oh, you're studying all the words like properly, you get there and you're like, I don't understand what these people are saying because it's so contracted. The words get so contracted that you, like, je suis become suis or whatever. Starts to contract. But I guess it's a part of our, you know, we gotta go, we gotta, you know, be on the move, so we have to speak.
Yes, you get used to it.
We're not in the jungle. In the jungle, you know, we can take our time.
I wish I could live in a place like that. So you can hear the birds. You can hear the birds singing. That's a great place. What Brazilian state do you live in? I don't know the place.
It's São Paulo. The state is
São Paulo.
The city is São Sebastião.
São Sebastião.
And then this beach is Boiçucanga, because all the beaches here in São Sebastião have the names of indigenous. I think it's Tupi.
Yeah, it is. It is Tupi.
Camburi. It's all Maresias. It's all like Tupi names.
Yeah.
Itaipu.
Correct. Okay. So it's interesting that this word Boiçucanga. Boiçucanga, if you change the position of this word, you have a different meaning. For example, Boicanguçu. If you say Boicanguçu, means the snake which has a big head, big-headed snake. But Boiçu, it's a big snake. It's the head of a big snake. Boiçucanga. There is also one place called Mogi, which is called also Mogi das Cruzes. Mogi comes from Mboiú. So it's the river of the snakes. And it's interesting to know these meanings, because most of these places is describing characteristics. For example, animals which used to live in the place, like Tatuapé. Tatuapé is a place for the armadillo. It's the path for the armadillo. The tatu. We can also say in Portuguese peba, which is another way of saying tatu in Tupi language. As João is saying, it's a paradise where you live.
I know. It's funny because it took a while to adapt, because it's such a small city, and I'm a big city girl, and you have to get used to the humidity and a lot of like wildlife. Like,
how do you tackle with it?
I saw porcupines the other day.
Really? Porcupines?
There's, possum. Yeah. Possum.
Oh, that.
You know Saruê?
Saruê is from Tupi language. Saruê is from Tupi.
It's
John's asking, where did you live in USA?
I was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts, but I lived in Los Angeles before as well. Where I was born is close to Boston. I usually say I'm from Boston just because it's close. So
good.
But yeah,
I was.
But I want to thank you.
All right.
For taking the time, and for the work you do. You know, I think the work that you do is very important, like the preservation of language, because again, it preserves wisdom and knowledge, and it's the perpetuation, the dissemination of this wisdom. So I want to thank you, because sometimes we think that what we're doing maybe doesn't make sense. I feel like it does. Like, it makes total sense to me. So,
okay.
so keep doing what you're doing, and working on your poetry. All these things to me, I feel like are medicinal, and the planet, humanity is so in deprivation of it. Deprivation of like beauty, and all of these things that artists to the table. So to recognize that and to remember that, you know, is important. To recognize it in each other, you know.
Yes,
and I think that's why I was drawn to your material, because we have things that are in common, you know, like that we have affinities and we think similarly in you know, in general.
We certainly do.
Ways.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was amazing to talk.
I'm really thankful for. Same here. I was really. I'm really happy to have this opportunity, and thank you very much for contacting me and sharing your knowledge as well. So hope to see you again next time. Okay? See you.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
Bye, Maria. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.